gun pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.
Star Trek needs bigger numbers, one way or the other, and the fan base does need to grow. And whatever does, and that's why I think they do so many quirky episodes. And I think in a way it's because of how the negative engagement discourse, especially around politics and allegory, which by the way has been in Star Trek since its inception.
Yeah, Star Trek's been woke since the beginning. So
you know, it's
by the way, but
you know, it's so I do too, because when I was a political reporter, the first time I saw woke, it was, you know, black activists using the term to like stay aware of this thing that police will try to do to jam you up. And I've never known, I've been told that people have described themselves this way. I've never known anyone to seriously describe their ideology that way, using that word. But I did write an article that says Star Trek was woke from the beginning, only because I was trying to own the top results of that Star Trek woke search thing. I wanted the first thing you see to be me
I know,
saying.
it's a word we're stuck with now, unfortunately. But I think it's, again, the cynic in me is going, I think a bunch of right-wing idiots went, well, black people can appropriate words, so we're going to appropriate one of theirs. And I
100%.
think it was done on 100%. Purpose, and that's why it makes a little bit of sick in my mouth, if I'm honest.
It's like SJW before that. Remember SJW?
Yeah.
And I think the problem with that was, like, the reason they went to SJW is because social justice warrior, that actually sounds kind of badass, right? You know, call me a social justice warrior. I'm like, oh, thank you. I was non-combat in
liberal. We won't go into more politics because we'll get into trouble with the comments. But when did liberal become a bad word? I'm a liberal.
Whenever Roger Ailes started Fox News. Again, that is if you want to know that story, my book What I Learned, Stories, Essays, and More, it features a breakdown where I did a breakdown of like ideological media, specifically conservative media, and how that has changed the way that, like, you can't even, like this, like we can't even acknowledge that politics exists. Neither of us have said a political opinion. We have just acknowledged that there are politics, and, you know, I understand where you're like, let's not get into that. And I'm like, sure. But then again, it's Star Trek, you know, like in the Star Trek Reddit, they have no politics. And I'm like, oh, do I have bad news for you guys?
No, Star Trek is just, it's very much about politics, the social commentary, and 100%.
But I think that part of the reason so many quirky episodes are done that way is, again, to try to attract people who are like, oh, I don't want politics. That's too divisive. Like, they want fun space adventures. So I think that's why they think that, again, not understanding that people who will find Star Trek aren't going to sign up to Paramount Plus because they're like, oh, maybe I'll like Star Trek. You know, like, maybe if they sign up to Paramount Plus, that you might get people who discover it. But, you know, I don't think, like, even the way this algorithmic stuff works, like, I'm sure if you watch a Taylor Sheridan show on your Paramount Plus, it's just going to recommend more of his stuff to you and stuff like that. Star Trek will be buried. Like I think there's very few opportunities where, like, especially in the syndication days, where people would turn on a channel and be like, what's this? You know, there'd be some crazy Star Trek thing happening, and people would.
That's how I found Firefly. I didn't watch it until it looked stupid. I happened to watch it one day just thinking, oh, what's this? And then I immediately went out and bought the DVD box set and became a brown coat. But that's how we used to find things sometimes. You just be watching flicking channels, and it doesn't happen anymore because with streaming, you've got to go looking for something. You don't really flick like.
And that's why I worry about the future of Star Trek. To segue into that last bit of our discussion, is that I feel like, you know, there is talk, and people have said, because again, people have agendas. You know, every source that I ever had when I was doing reporting, they tell you the truth, or the truth is they know it, but they have a reason for telling you it the way it is.
I have to be really careful of that, particularly with Star Trek.
And well, I mean, think about, like, you know, you've done some. You were the first. When I saw Billy Piper, I was like, holy shit, Jay nailed it. But you know, the thing with Doctor Who, saying that, like, oh, Disney doesn't like it because of the content. Or Disney isn't making streaming shows for the stuff they own. You know, Tony Gilroy for Andor did an interview where he said someone from Disney's like, "Oh, streaming's dead," so they're not gonna pay BBC to rent Doctor Who when they're not investing in like the Marvel and Star Wars stuff for their streaming service. I think it has everything to do with the business, you know.
I actually think there's a problem with Doctor Who in that Disney have been sick of being told they're woke and are desperately trying to get away from that label that they create themselves. And Doctor Who is the most woke thing that we've had on TV in the last 2 years, and I still hate that freaking term. But it's got Doctor Who has an agenda to it from Russell T Davies.
I mean, what story doesn't?
I like what he's trying to do, but it doesn't sit in America right now.
I mean, the thing, it's fair. We're going through it over here. But I mean, it's the same as putting a whore on a Russian on the bridge. It's just gay and trans folks now, and people aren't used to seeing that. People, you know, talk about that being an agenda. It's like, no, they just exist and they're in stories now. You know, that's like, that was the thing with Discovery. Oh, Discovery, you know, Star Trek is political now. I swear to God, there's on that review of Discovery season 1, there was a comment from a guy whose name is he's now a very big negative engagement YouTuber. And I remember the name because I actually was like, that name's a little clever. I won't say it because that's what they want us to do, is to say their names. But his comment was, I can't believe Star Trek is political now. And I just remember staring at it like, do people not know? Yeah. Do people not know? And
the original series, the black and white face episode.
Well, it wasn't subtle. It was not subtle. If you have any bigotry, leave it in your quarters. There's no room for it on the bridge. And balance of terror.
Oh yeah, but it used to be subtle. No, it didn't.
Yeah.
The whole TNG transgender episode, that was not subtle.
Right. The Enterprise one with the where Archer's yelling at Trip because of it was a very similar. It always mixes with the Progenitor episode of TNG for me, because it's very similar. But yeah, none of it was ever subtle. I mean, there were certain questions that were left open, but it's like the big questions that we don't know the answer to. Are these people allowed to be people? Star Trek has always been pretty clear, like, yes. Yes, they are. Should we tolerate them? Yes.
The whole thing with Data from the beginning is about slavery and freedom, and that's really his main thing and what it is to be
measure of a man
sort of thing. And that was the whole point of it. It's very, not subtle. The court episode or Data's Day, the episode, it's not subtle that it's that it's political. But with the future of Star Trek, then, as we said, that we're both worried about the future of Star Trek.
Our tachyon pulse has been unable to completely penetrate the anomaly.